A very good morning, children, and welcome back. Children, today we shall be taking up a writing skill, dialogue writing. I'm sure you've done this in the earlier class, but today we shall take it a little in detail. So let's start. What is a dialogue? A dialogue is a written or a verbal conversation between people representing different characters and exchanging their ideas. So dialogue is a written or a verbal conversation. You can write it or you say it verbally. Now here you can see two people. So it can be between two people or more than two. Okay? And of course they have different characters and they exchange their ideas. Now, why dialogue writing is important? Why should students, learn how to write dialogue? Very important, children, is in dialogue writing, you have to understand the colloquial way of writing a dialogue. Now, what do you understand by colloquial? That is ordinary or familiar conversation. Now, most of us have a problem speaking in English. Well, so even writing in English becomes difficult. Yes? So, in dialogue writing, we have to understand how to write it in a colloquial way. Next is, you have to train yourself to express your thoughts in an easy and natural construction. So, your dialogue should be in an easy and natural construction, okay? So you need to train yourself. How are you going to express your thoughts when you're writing it down? Therefore, dialogue writing is very important. Now let us see the characteristics of dialogue writing. Suppose, you prepare yourself for writing a dialogue. What are the things that you need to remember? What are the characteristics when you write a dialogue? Firstly, it has to be spontaneous. Now, what do you understand by spontaneous? Means it has to be at once. The idea comes to you at once. Suppose you have to write a conversation between two people. It has to be spontaneous. You can't waste time. It has to be quick. Then, it should be natural. Direct speech. You write it in direct speech. You've already done this, okay, in your grammar class. And you have to use exclamations and questions when you write your dialogue. So that is the natural way of writing dialogue. Very important, your dialogue has to be interesting. Imagine if you're going to write a dialogue, and it goes on and the language is very, very boring. People are not going to like reading your dialogue. So think of ways how you're going to make it interesting. Very important is your opening and your conclusion. As I told you, before you start writing your dialogue, you have to have an introductory sentence. And at the end, you have to have the concluding sentence. So these two things are very important when you're writing a dialogue. Then, you need to be impartial. Now, what do you understand by this? Suppose in your dialogue, children, you have two characters, two friends speaking. Please see that both the friends have equal dialogues. Not that one is speaking and the other is just listening. It is not a monologue. Monologue means of one person, one-sided, no? So it has to be both sides. So all the characters in your dialogue, they should have enough, dialogues. So it should be impartial. Then your dialogue should be concise. What do you understand by concise? It should be brief. Don't write a paragraph. One person is speaking and a full paragraph. No, it should be concise. So remember these characteristics while writing a dialogue. When you prepare to write a dialogue, basically you start with 3 steps. Now what are the 3 steps? First is imagine. In most of your writing skills, children, you have to imagine. You may not have been in that situation, but you need to imagine. Remember, God has given each one of us a great gift, and that is imagination. So you can imagine that you are in a situation like that. Then have an outline. Now, some of you may not be able to write an outline when you're writing in your exam, but you can have an outline in your mind. Think of 5 dialogues per speaker. Each speaker should at least have 5 dialogues to speak. Then arrange that dialogue. Now, there should be a flow when you read your dialogue. You can't start, wishing somebody in the middle of your dialogue or at the end. So you need to arrange your dialogue well. Let's see what are the types of dialogue writing. You have different questions that can come, so you need to understand what are the types of dialogues. Now basically there are 3. You have the formal, informal and semi-formal. When we talk about the formal children, it's a dialogue between a teacher and a student. How do you talk to your teacher? Very important. It is formal. How do you talk to your principal? Formal. Okay, so the dialogue when you're writing with your teacher, between your teacher and you, a student, it should be in formal. Now, when you have to write a dialogue between 2 friends, you can be informal, right? So, but you have to be careful that your language is not, slang, and it shouldn't be improper. Use proper language. Then, when we talk about semi-formal, that could be a dialogue between parent and a child. Suppose you're talking to your mother, you're talking to your father, you need to have the respect. It has to be formal, but at the same time you can be a little informal, right? So that is semi-formal. So these are basically 3 types of dialogues. Now what are the rules for dialogue writing? When you start writing your dialogue, what are the rules that you need to remember? First, when you get the question, understand the topic well. Don't just read 1 or 2 words and start writing your dialogue. Many a times children, write the wrong dialogue because they have not read the question well. So understand the topic well. What is the topic about? What am I going to write about? Have a proper beginning. Begin with a proper salutation. Now, as I told you, before you start your dialogue, what are you going to do? Write an introductory sentence. So start with a proper beginning. Begin with a proper salutation. Now, what is salutation, children? Salutation is greeting. When you say good evening, good morning, hello, all these are salutation. Then understand the type of situation it is and accordingly portray it in the tone of the dialogues. Now, what do you understand by this? Now, suppose you are talking, about a friend inviting you for a birthday celebration. Now, what kind of, celebration means? It's a joyful situation. So, of course, the tone of the dialogue will be what? It will be joyful. But suppose you have to write a dialogue, you are a reporter and you have to have a dialogue with the villagers of a particular village. It's a sad, tone. So you are going to write the dialogues accordingly. Then, use of tenses must be according to the dialogues. We have already done tenses and grammar. Remember to use the right tense. Most of the dialogue writing, we are writing present tense. But if in your dialogue, if you're going to write, something of the past, then you have to use the past tense. Now, keep subject-verb agreement in mind. Now, what do you understand by subject-verb agreement? Now, take for example, if I say, the child is playing. Child is what? Singular or plural? It's singular. And which is the verb there? Is. So, singular, child, and the verb comes is. But, if I change the subject and I say children, the children, then what will be the verb? The verb will be are playing. You can't say the children is playing. So, keep that in mind. subject verb agreement should be correct. And lastly, children, always have a proper ending of the dialogues. As I told you, a very good introductory sentence, and in the ending, you should have a concluding sentence. So that is what you need to remember while writing a dialogue. So let's have a little recap of what we've already done. We looked into the definition of a dialogue, why dialogue writing is important, what are the characteristics of dialogue writing, 3 steps to follow when you write a dialogue, types of dialogue writing, and rules for dialogue writing. Well, children, I hope you understood this video. Now what you are going to do is, for homework, you're just going to write down the characteristics, the 3 steps, and the types and rules for dialogue writing. Please copy this in your notebook. In our next video, we will take up an example of dialogue writing. Okay, we'll do that together, and I'm sure you will enjoy that exercise too. So children, I hope you are taking care of yourself. I hope you are studying sincerely, you're doing your assignment. For those who have not submitted, please submit it, even your internal assessment. Okay, please see, that's very important, children. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for all you're doing, children, and God bless you.